Well, hello there, and we are back. It's been a long wait, I know. This has been like a month. But as you know, as I said earlier on, these recordings will not come as frequent as we would expect because of my calendar of things to do. But I'm so glad I am back to be able to talk on this last component, which is component 6. Now remember, these CEUs, they had 6 components to them. As I said at the end, this particular component has multiple segments to it as it relates to the training. And so I want you to make sure that you take good notes because there will be a competency quiz at the end in order to get your certification of the credits for this training, which will be quite a bit of information to be able to prove your competency for both the workforce and for faith-based populations that you may be serving. Now, this CEU Component 6 here, some of the information may sound redundant, but because there are different segments that I'm dealing with, different prevention types of models that you need to understand as it relates to the policies and safe environments for both youth, teens, and anyone that's in the workforce, you want to make sure that you take good notes so that the competency, when you take the quiz, you will pass it. Won't be anything difficult. It's just, first of all, that we do need to have that to make sure that you have not just said I took this class and there is no competency model or tool to be used to prove that you have completed it successfully. So anyway, the certificate will cost $22, one for the registering and printing, and then the other one for mail. That's the purpose of the $22 that will cover that. So if you are interested in getting a copy of the certificate, you will email me if you're getting this information via email or from the same email that you receive it. Or if you're getting it via YouTube, then you will use the address that's in the YouTube description there so that you can email me and letting me know that you would like to get a copy of it once we have completed this component, number 6, all of its segments, and then you will get the information as to how to receive your your quiz information so that you can get the certificate. And I think you'll be glad that you did. So let's talk about the goals for Component 6. The goals for this particular segment we're talking about, which is going to be on your information that you're going to receive, you'll see CEU-Component 6.1, which means this is just part 1 of it. And so this segment that I'm talking about now, which is 6.1, I'm talking about the training that's going to be needed for those people who are going to be either serving you, whether it's in a faith-based population or whether it's in the workforce, meaning the secular. We've got to know that these areas as far as sexual abuse, sexual harassment, child sexual abuse prevention is very, very important for us to take heed to. Even though we are focusing primarily in this segment, we're focusing on preparing to train people as it relates to where your policy and procedures for where you are, whether it's in a church or whether it is in a workforce position, meaning the professional secular environment. And so that could be a daycare or anything like that. But I wanted to talk about the training portion of it. So our goal for this teaching portion of 6.1 of the component is to give people the information that they need and the skills they need to help, them to prevent this type of abuse or this type of harassment in the workplace or in some type of faith-based or secular environment. And I hope to bring out in this segment general guidelines that you need to understand that I'll cover to give you the information in the education that you need on training. For these three different types of populations, that as it relates to organizations or ministries or businesses. And the first of these three would be the employees or your volunteers. And then the second category would be the caregivers and the youth, those people who are not able to take care of themselves, such as the youth and teens. And so it's important. I know this is, like I said before, every time I get on here to be trained, my sinuses act like they want to stop up. But, oh, well, devil, we're still going forward. And so I want to talk about the general principles for this training as well. What the general principle is simply, as I said before, we're training. So if we're setting up training in a business or in a organization as it relates to dealing with youth or in a company that is secular, whether it's faith-based or secular, this general principle of this training is to ensure that this child sexual abuse or sexual harassment abuse training will be effective and it'll fit, these different categories of whatever your ministry is or your organization is, so that people can follow those guidelines. And so the goals in this training will do a couple of things that I want to point out here, and that is to set measurable goals. You want to be able to set some measurable goals to what you're trying to do as you begin to train the individuals that's going to be working for you or the individuals that are taking part as far as volunteering or if they're on staff full-time or part-time. And so with that said, as you set these measurable goals, what you're doing, these goals are deciding what are the desired behaviors, or the performances, or the changes that you want in these trainees or that you want in your organization or company or church. And then what is the essential thing that the people can gain from the training? That's very important that you want to look at as you set your goals for your training. And then you want to also mention that your goal is to plan the training to meet those goals. You want to make sure that when you mention a specific thing in your advertisement or in the training is that what your plan is to help meet the goals for those who are going to be participating in the training. And then you also want to have a model that you can evaluate the training periodically to ensure that the goals are being met. And so you have to do an evaluation type of a form so you can see whether the teachers that were presenting or whether you were presenting or whatever part that was in the training, they might not even like it or they might not feel that it has given them what they need. That's what I'm so glad I remember to say that. That's the other part that you will need to do as well. You will need to fill out an evaluation form in order for you to get your certificate. You'll have to complete our evaluation form so that I can see how was I doing, or do I need to do something different for this training. That's the purpose of that. And so you need to evaluate the training. And then you need to decide if your ministry or your business or organization wants to use an overarching type of a frame. And that means two of these types have been used in different organizations and in businesses. So you want to look at, number one, which is very important, when you use these overarching frames that will best fit, you want to look at these two particular areas. Is it in regards to healthy sexuality that you're going to be bringing out in this training? And then the second one is rights and responsibilities, that the people who are going to be serving you and or those people that you're training, they need to understand the issues of these two areas as far as given these overlapping or arching type of goals in the training. You want to make sure that they have this understanding of healthy sexuality and the rights and responsibility. Now, the healthy sexuality framework of this is for a child, if a child is if you're dealing with child sexual abuse education, what it's going to do is going to help the individual distinguish this child sexual abuse from something that is healthy and is normal versus normal. So you want to make sure that in this particular segment of the healthy sexuality, that the child sexual abuse education is going to help that person who is in that training to distinguish that. How are you going to be able to get that person to know what's healthy and what's not good or normal? And then the rights and responsibility framework of it, it involves teaching the people that's involved that they have the right to be treated appropriately and that the responsibility to treat others appropriately is also part of the person who has a company or a ministry and organization, that they are being taught that they need to treat the people appropriately, and that the responsibility to treat the others, treat people appropriately is a must or is a goal for what you're teaching them in this prevention model that you're going to be training the leaders or those who are working for you in your business or ministry. Now, let's talk about some other areas that this training model is going to do as you begin to prepare to train those people who are going to be working for you. So I want to talk about the integration of the content into a specific area or into the entire ministry or organizational business. So the first thing you want to do as far as you taking the content that you're preparing the people to be trained with, you want to make sure as you're integrating these contents for the training, you want to ensure that the training content is modeled by everyone in your organization, whether it's management or whether it's the daycare directors, whether it's the employees, it's full-time or part-time, and even volunteers. And then you want to make sure that the training content should be evident in performance measures, supervisors' feedback to the employees or the volunteers and the caregivers' observations, and the treatment of the youth by the organization. So you want to make sure that these are integrated in this training. And then you want to combine, what I think is really important to do, and and I always do this a lot, I combine all the different elements as it relates to a specific topic that I'm doing. I combine what my philosophy, look at me, my tongue getting tied again, what my mission is or my philosophy of why I'm doing a thing with my particular training mission or procedures that I want to bring out for whoever is taking it. So, for instance, if I'm talking about domestic violence or I'm talking about sexual abuse in this training, I want to make sure that, for example, if I'm dealing with a broad topic like this, for example, if it's a faith-based organization, then what I want to do, I may want to incorporate elements of my faith-based type of policy and procedures or particular visions or our belief systems in regards to domestic violence in the training content because I'm faith-based. And if you are workforce type of professional development, secular organization, then you want to be putting in that training your domestic violence prevention or domestic violence crisis policy and procedure in, you're going to integrate it into the training because that's what the training is covering. And if it's sexual assault or sexual abuse, prevention, then you want to put those models in the training. You can't just have, when you're doing prevention, especially when it's anything with sexual abuse or violence, you want to make sure that you include these types of integration of specific things that will be well-rounded to fit everybody, whether it's the employees that are full-time, volunteers, as I said earlier on, or even those people who are caregivers. And so let's look at some other areas that I think is important. We'll come back to look at some training techniques that you want to cover within your training model. Now, we won't cover all this today, but I did want to give you a couple of other nuggets that we will be focusing on as far as integration is concerned. And one of them, you want to look at a way that you can, start to talk to people about, especially if it's daycare leaders or people that or any area of business or ministry where it's dealing with children or people who are vulnerable and possibility that could, be sexually violated or go through some type of a sexual harassment. And so you want to have a model in there that's talking about the creation of a safe place. And so in order to have the training in regards to that, you want to have a model that creates an environment in which these trainees that are taking your training can feel comfortable about raising questions and concerns. So whoever it is that's working for you, within your policies and your procedures, you are also training people how to write this about having a place that is safe, that they can talk about specific issues or they can bring these out, whether it's in staffing or meetings and, and having this kind of receptive to the questions kind of environment, with, so you can reduce the barriers that can come forward, even, as far as people wanting to report something, or being proactive about preventing and responding to a situation where that person could possibly have something that they have saw happen in your organization or your ministry, and then you can respond to this thing quicker because you've opened a place where people can come to and talk about and or use a particular tool. And we'll talk about those tools later on in this training, where you can develop some type of, tool where people can actually report in a specific way to you without feeling threatened of their job or the person who they might know that they witnessed something or they saw something they may fear for their lives. And then the other point is a point of contact for the child sexual abuse or the individual who has been sexually harassed, or, a fondle, whatever that situation may be, heaven forbid. But a point of contact for child sexual abuse, which means you want to do a training segment of this that will designate one point of contact. Remember, we talked about that for questions and concerns, and this way it'll ensure these messages about any type of a situation that may have arise either from a child making a comment or showing you that they have been touched inappropriately. But this one point of contact person will be able to communicate in a how they say, in a respectable and a consistent type of mode, which means they're not going to change their story, and they're going to, from fear, and they're going to make sure they're consistent about reporting stuff in a timely fashion. Regardless of who it is or what they fear, they're going to be consistent in making sure they handle those things because they're designated and they have been entrusted with this part. And so this point of contact can be one individual or group within a division of your organization or your ministry. And so what you want to understand about this, you've got to make sure that when you're training and also when you are allowing someone to be that point of contact, you want to make sure that you state explicitly that every person that is involved in your ministry, whether they're a volunteer or an employee, is still responsible for preventing and responding to these type of issues. So you cannot get people to think that that's not my job, that's not my issue, I'm not the point of contact, I'm not on that team. No, you need to make sure that when you're training the people, they need to make sure that they are held accountable and responsible for having a safe place and making sure that any abuse, anything that goes down, that because they are responsible and maybe a part of a team or the direct designated point of contact, they are, you're entrusting that they will make sure that your ministry and your organization will maintain the integrity of safety, public safety. And then now let's get to the meat of the matter as I share briefly about training techniques. Now, all of these, I don't know if I can get through them real quickly, but I've got to set my timer. But I want to share this portion of it. I want to share that there are many ways to provide the information that you're going to be setting up your training for and how to teach these skills to people. But your delivery mechanism is the first thing I want to talk about because many times people will get people in a room and they'll talk about a whole bunch of things, and people will go to sleep or they're not attentive. So your delivery mechanism level, and we need to talk about the interactivity, which is very important. We need to talk about the frequency, how long is this meeting or this training going to be. We need to talk about the training methods. And all the needs that are going to be considered when you design this training or this educational program that you're going to be doing, whether it's going to be a one-time thing or something you're going to do quarterly. You know how some people do fire drills. You need to make sure you constantly are setting up these type of trainings because some people are coming new to your organization, your ministry. New volunteers are coming. We just finished doing a training not too long ago for the hospital so we could go in and do our clinical at the hospital. So one of the things I I think on that is that they constantly have trainings because they constantly have people that are volunteering and coming in. So same thing. In my organization, when I had it, where it was on a secular and faith-based level, I would have every month, we would have our fire drills. And every month we would have our quarterly in-service training. And that's so that anybody that was new, they would understand the methods and the procedures of what we did in our in my ministry and organization, that is the secular side of it, so that everybody would be on the same page. And so when there were new things that people needed to understand, at that time, everybody got a chance to learn those new things. Everybody got a chance to voice what they understand clearly, and they signed off on those that they understood and that they were involved in that training. The other thing that I think that was significant and that you might want to consider, people tend to, when they've been with you for a while, they have a tendency to believe that they are irreplaceable. And so they try to make sure that everything that they do, they put that job or that position or that ministry position in a place that you're going to have to depend on them. So one thing that I think is very important, cross-training, is what we did in those monthly meetings. So, for instance, if my what I call my receptionist was absent, it was no problem because I had already trained at least 2 or 3 people or more on how to be the receptionist when she's not there. And the reason why cross-training is important is because you want to continue to flow the excellence within your organization and your ministry so that nothing is missing and nothing is broken. So that means you continue to grow and continue to fix whatever is broken so that you continue to maintain excellence, and so the quality will come forth, and then people will continue to visit because you're constantly having somebody answering the phone. You're constantly having someone that, there to see whether or not if we need to help out in the bathroom or whatever it is that you don't have cleaning service. I'm just giving an example. And so you need to look at your delivery mechanism is the first thing we want to talk about here. And your delivery mechanism this means that you can use a great deal of different types of technology, or you don't have to use none at all. But your training message means the numbers of trainees, the people, the resources that you're going to be giving them, the flexibility and the integration, with other types of training within this organization or this ministry. You should consider these. You should take consideration that when you're choosing this delivery mechanism, you got to be very sensitive to dealing with these emotional type of topics, as it relates to child abuse or sexual abuse, domestic violence, and so on. So you got to be very careful of how you're dealing with that because you don't know who's in the audience that may be still, being challenged with that. So these emotional topics of incest or child sexual abuse and sexual harassment and so on, in these impersonal type of formats, you got to also look at these online, the videos or CDs, whatever you're looking at your delivery for this, you got to be very, very careful. Now, when you're looking at online, issues or online education, that is, you got to look at the interaction because it's very important because interaction is key to making sure that people learn the material or that they're using the interactive online techniques to make the thing work better than just sitting there being passive. You want to make sure that if it's something in relation to what they're seeing on the video or online activity, this has to work so that people can get what they need internally and not just visually. So that means they're going to receive through their eyes and they're going to digest it. And so you can use videos and CDs. Of course, it's another delivery mechanism. You could do this in person, because like me, I'm using this technology of recording to you, and I'm using this audio method, though it's going through YouTube. I'm using audio electronic method to give you this particular delivery of this teaching. Or you can do written. You will also not only have this electronic part, but you will also have written at the end so that you can show your competency. And then the combination of the delivery mechanisms is important too. You can combine these. You can look at some online, you can do some in person, and so on. You want to make sure that that delivery mechanism is conducive for their learning. And then interactivity. This is one of the ones that I think is very important, that people should know that they're not going to just be sitting there being lectured to. The interactivity for the training, which means that it can be passive, but it needs to be interactive. In some way, people may not want to, say much. They may be passive somewhere there. But as far as getting up, getting in a groove, doing an activity, they then can use passive training, which means that they can start to interact in some other ways that you may say the group is going to watch this video and so on. So training can be passive in the interactivity, and it can be interactive, or it can be somewhere in between. But you want to make sure that you use passive training. If you're using that in this mode, this gives the people that you give the training to have an understanding that they do not have to interact with anybody else if they're watching a video, or they do have to interact as it relates to a group of people. So you have to look at how they're going to be involved to raise awareness to whatever part of the training that you're giving them for whatever reason. So that's how you're going to determine which way you're going to do the interactivity. And so you can also use your interactivity training where the trainees need or must interact with the trainer or with the other trainees, for skill building. So you can't just have people within a training such as even what I'm doing here in electronic through audio. I can't just assume that you really have a competency of something because you listened to me and took notes. No, you're going to have to take a competency quiz on what you've learned, because there's a lot that you've learned here that may have sound redundant, but you're going to have to prove that you have absorbed this information. And so then the next part of this training technique that you're going to be planning, as we're talking about right now, planning these trainings, and your goal as far as this component is frequency. You need to decide if your ministry or your organization or business needs to reinforce the content about how you're going to give this information and how often. And so this frequency of whatever topic is going to be, you need to reinforce how important it is that those people, now we're talking about in your policies as well, how often you're going to do this. I just explained that I did mine monthly, and then some things we did quarterly. And, but I think it's important that you make sure you emphasize in your policy the frequency of this training. These techniques I'm giving you now is to help you to both write the policy about the training plan and goals, as I said earlier on, and now you're also going to include, as you are designing your training for your topic, for in-service and or secular or faith-based development for such issues that we're covering in this training, then you want to make sure that you ensure that the training is going to either be ongoing and not just a one-time event, and or you want to educate in both formal training sessions, and that you want to give this informal setting so that you can maybe have just conversations, or you can do an audio that they can listen to and or report back to within a group setting, or something individualized. But whatever way, the frequency has to be defined, okay? So, and then, what is going to be enforced as you teaching this particular class, what's going to be enforced for this training, and how often is it going to be offered. And then the methods. This one is important because if you don't have a method down, how are you going to deliver your training? But what methods do, methods use several different types of ways to train the people on different issues, whatever it is that you're going to be teaching. And what the methods also do, they reinforce the message. It allows the people that are going to be involved in your training to have different learning styles so they can absorb the information, so they can have the hands-on and or interactivity type of skill building. And so with these methods, what happens is that it allows you, when you're developing your training model for whatever topic you're going to be talking about, what it does, it helps you present the case studies, if you have any, so that you can talk about the discussions about the topic, and so you can give some suggestions about handling the situations that you're talking about, and, and how to problem solve it. You don't want to just be giving somebody a bunch of information and no solutions. And so you're going to look at the methods for the problem solving of the issue that you're teaching, and then you want to make sure that your method also includes asking the people to even possibly do role plays in the situations that you're modeling for the training. I believe in doing skits in my stuff, because this way when I do little mini dramas or skits in what I'm trying to demonstrate, then what it does, it opens up the person's eyes even greater, and it impacts the audience to want to really engage in what you're trying to teach them. They begin to absorb it better. And you might want to use other techniques like journaling. It might be one technique that you want to use in your method, journaling, to show people how to write whatever they're feeling or whatever. Or you can have outside these professional people or these people that's in your ministry to conduct a training. This may help to try to emphasize the importance of a topic. So that means you may give them a segment of a topic every month or every quarter, so they'll have a responsibility, and then it starts to be a chain reaction for other people to be involved in the training. So these techniques that you're designing, people can follow sync, because they know that this month Jackie is teaching, next month or next quarter James is teaching, but at least you got it down so everybody know that you're allowing those in-house and possibly people that are from the outside. You can bring in other professionals who are trained, probably licensed and trained in different areas of professional areas that can, highlight what you're teaching. Because I believe in bringing other people in if they're qualified to teach on another level of what I've taught. I might want to take it up to another notch. For example, if I'm talking about domestic violence and all I know is just the abuse side of the being physically beaten, maybe nobody's talking about domestic violence as far as sexual assault is concerned, because it's sexual violence. People being raped by their own husbands or spouses, and so people need to understand that segment. So I might want to go to RAD or somewhere and bring people in to teach on, sexual assault, how to defend yourself and stuff like that when you're being forced to have sex against your will, even if it's your own spouse. So we need to understand we do have a right to say no. And so these are methods that you can consider. And then the mechanisms to ensure that the training happens is the next thing you want to consider as far as training techniques in your planning. Why do you need to do this then, Dr. Murphy? Why do we need to look at the mechanisms to make sure the training happens? Well, the reason why in particular is because the training, it can be very expensive, or it can be very time-consuming. And, and these mechanisms, they've got to be in place to ensure that the training is going to be, conducted, or it's going to be conducive to what you're trying to get to happen in your ministry or your organization. Because a lot of times you're having a certain type of training, it has nothing to do with what you know is happening right then and there within your organization, business, or ministry, and you need to be addressing sexual harassment or bullying or whatever that is, and you're not dealing with that. You may be going around trying to deal with people that's got a bad attitude or that let's talk about timeliness or whatever, to be at work on time or dress code, but you're not dealing with bullying issues, and it's a big issue in your office or your ministry. So you want to make sure that the mechanisms that you start to prepare for the training, and that these mechanisms that you're deciding, or methods that you're deciding to conduct your training to make the people be more strengthened or be more educated. You want to ensure that the training does happen. And so in some ways you can look at that is the first thing you want to do is look at developing a regular type of training schedule, or you need to repeat the training that you see that is really, really one that maybe some might be out or so many can only come to a training that maybe they can't come out of these positions, that they may be in a daycare or they can't come out because of the way it's staffed, or, some jobs cannot be, positions can't be left unattended. So you might want to repeat the trainings and rotate those people to be able to come in to make sure that they get the training. So you will repeat it when a specific number or a few numbers I said earlier on, people that can or cannot be there, or you want to make sure that volunteers who have been hired or those volunteers who are constantly coming in or you constantly have a rotation of volunteers, you want to make sure that they have had an opportunity to get this training. And in addition to that, you want to integrate training into the overall portion of what I'm training this about: sexual assault, safe environments, public safety. You want to make sure you integrate that in the overall prevention policy that's within your organization or your ministry, because some staff members or some volunteers need to know that these need to be worked into, something that they're going to be responsible for taking part in, which need to be in your policies every month or every quarter. So they can't be saying, well, why I got to go to that again? We had already done that. That's because you are integrating different portions of types of trainings within your organization. That's why I'm teaching you the different type of training techniques now, so you can start working on doing these now. Why you want to start an organization? You have no training models in place. You need to start working on that now. What are you training your volunteers to come help you? What are you training people to understand your responsibility, what you're expecting them in your organization? You can't just get people coming there because they like what you're doing. You're going to have to be structured. It does not make sense to have an organization or a business and you have no policy. We talk about that all the time. You're going to have that, especially if you're going to start writing checks. You better have some policy, because people are going to always come in your organization or ministry trying to change stuff, what's going to be comfortable or conducive to what they want. When you ain't got no policy, all they know is you just want to get it to happen so you can make the money or get the vision to go. And people don't come in and try to change that vision because they know you're silly enough not to have no policy, so they're going to write something for you. That means I'm going to do it my way, or you're going to look and wish you had had some policy, because I'm going to write my own is what that person is showing you, and you need me, so you're going to go along with what I have to do or whatever I'm doing, because you ain't got nobody else here that can do it like me. But the devil is a lie. You're going to need to make sure you write policies so that you can have excellence, professional order, and a safe environment. Excellence, organizational order, and a safe environment. And so now for those people, like I said earlier on, you want to make sure that these individuals understand that in your policy that you're requiring these periodic certifications, and it's all based on the training completion. And that meaning if you don't get it done, then you won't get the certificate, or if you don't participate, you won't get it. You won't be able to get it. And so, first and foremost, with this closing that I'm going to do on this technique for this particular part of this segment of our training segment of the techniques, you want to save time, of not getting a whole bunch done, and one day you try to get what you can get done for that particular training in that day, and so you can save time without jumping around, stay focused. So you want to save time. When you're focused, you're going to save time, of course, but not only time, but you're going to save money, and you're going to save resources, and so that your organization can reap these particular things that I want to close out with. First of all, when you're saving this time and this money and these raw resources, your organization can expect to ask for help when they know they need it, so that when this group need help, especially those who've already done this type of training, you can really save time and money or resources. And then it helps when you all work together with a group or with a similar organization that can come in and support your efforts to help train and develop and or implement the trainings that you don't know how to do. You don't want to try to do something or train something that you have no qualifications for or that you have no education for. So don't do something just because you want to show you training. Bring in the qualified people, or you go get the training and come back to train the trainer. And then you want to also make sure that you partner. You know, I've partnered with a lot of different people because I want to make sure I be well-rounded. I believe in being very socially action-driven. I want to make sure that I am impacting not only those in the faith base, but I want to make sure that I touch and let the oil on my life spill over into the secular. You know, you got to partner with other organizations. You got to partner with people more than the church. The church is really weak on that because what they like to do is just only partner in faith-based entities. But you got to know in order for you to have a well-rounded ministry, you're going to have to be social action-driven. And so you want to partner with other organizations, and I mean that includes child advocacy, the police department, sexual abuse or violence organizations, you know, coalitions, universities, colleges, high schools, prisons, you know, I mean, even the police department. You need to get involved with the county jail, everybody else. I mean, I'll be moving around, dentist offices, whatever I can get my foot in the door, because I want to network these people so that I can get them to come and talk about whatever it is that I need to make an impact in the lives of those who either going to be partnering with me or that's going to be serving me in my ministry or my business, so that I can be effective, and most importantly, that I can get this safe environment so that I can have order and so that people can have what they need. And many times people don't get what they need because we don't have effective training models. We don't have order. We don't have any goals. We don't have any integration. We don't try to look at these areas that I talked about earlier on, your delivery, your interactivity, your frequency, your methods, and looking at ways to partner so that people can get what they need while they're serving you, so that you can both educate, develop, and also equip the people while working and volunteering or serving in an environment that you've written policies for both public and workplace safety. God bless you. Talk to you soon.